There's a garden. Nothing about it looks remarkable from the outside. Same soil, same sun, same water. But one side of it is producing vegetables almost twice the size of the other. The only difference is something small, almost invisible. A few thin spirals of copper wire, twisted around wooden sticks, rising just above the soil. Those spirals aren't decorative. They're antennas. The idea is this. The atmosphere above us is constantly charged with electricity. And these simple copper coils, if made correctly, can pull that charge gently downward, into the soil, and directly to the roots of your plants. The materials cost almost nothing. The process takes less than 20 minutes, and the results, if you do it right, are difficult to explain until you see them. This isn't something someone invented on the internet last year. In 1748, a French clergyman named Abbé Nollet conducted one of the earliest recorded experiments in what he called electrovegetation. He ran electrical currents through seeds and documented that they germinated faster. Other scientists followed. By the mid-1800s, researchers across Europe were publishing papers on how atmospheric electricity accelerated plant growth. There were entire fields wrapped in copper wire, entire gardens experimenting with what they called electroculture, and then it quietly disappeared. Not because it didn't work, but because the 20th century moved in a different direction. Chemical fertilizers arrived, industrial agriculture took over, and this quiet, low-cost method, the one that needed no factories, no patents, no recurring purchases, simply faded. The research didn't disappear entirely. Scientists have continued to study how electric fields affect plant biology. What they've found is genuinely strange. Plants exposed to weak electromagnetic fields often show accelerated cell division, stronger root systems, and higher uptake of nutrients from the soil. This was documented, published, and somehow almost no one talks about it. Let me explain what's actually happening. You already know that the atmosphere is electrically charged. You can feel it before a storm, you've seen lightning, you've seen how the air feels different when it's about to rain. What you might not know is that even on a perfectly clear day, the ground carries a small negative charge, and the upper atmosphere carries a positive one. Between them, there's a constant slow flow of electrical energy moving downward. Plants already know this. Their roots and leaves operate partly through electrical signaling. It's how they open and close their stomata. It's how they respond to touch, to insects, to stress. Electricity isn't foreign to them. It's part of how they function. What a copper antenna does is simple. Copper conducts electricity extremely well. When you twist copper wire into a coil and push it into the ground, you're creating a gentle collector. It draws atmospheric charge down the wire, concentrates it slightly, and releases it into the soil near the roots. Think of it the way you think of a lightning rod. But instead of redirecting a dangerous strike, this invites a slow and constant trickle. Steady, quiet, almost like a conversation between the sky and the soil. Here is how to make one. You need 3 things: a wooden stick or bamboo, at least 40 centimeters long, copper wire, the uncoated kind, as thin as you can find it, and your hands. That's it. Start by cutting a length of wire about 60 centimeters long. Take the top of the stick and begin wrapping. Wrap in the same direction, always the same direction, moving upward in a spiral. This matters. The coil direction affects how it interacts with the natural charge flow. Clockwise, when viewed from above, if you're working in the northern hemisphere. Make between 7 and 9 turns. No more, no less is a rule you'll hear, but in practice, 7 to 9 is where most people see the strongest results. Leave a small tail of wire hanging from the bottom of the coil. This is what will make contact with the soil. Push the stick into the ground about 10 centimeters from your plant, not touching the roots, just close. 1 per plant is enough to start. For larger beds, place them every 60 to 70 centimeters in a line. And then, you wait. You water as normal. You tend as normal. You do nothing else different. There are a few things people get wrong. The first is using coated wire. Hardware stores sell copper wire wrapped in plastic or enamel insulation. That wire will do almost nothing here. The copper needs to be exposed, bare. The second mistake is placing it too close to the stem. The antenna needs to be near the root zone, not crowding the plant. Think of it as sitting beside the plant, not leaning against it. The third mistake is mixing metals. Some people attach the wire to a metal stake or touch it to a steel cage. Different metals in wet soil create a small galvanic reaction, essentially a battery, and this introduces the wrong kind of electrical interference. Stick to wood or bamboo for the support. One detail people overlook: the quality of your soil matters. Compacted, dry, or chemically saturated soil doesn't conduct as well. Loose, moist, living soil is a much better conductor. Compost helps, not because of the nutrients, but because of the microorganisms. Healthy soil with active bacteria and fungi conducts electrical charge more efficiently. The antenna works with what's already alive in the ground. I want to be honest with you about what to expect. You're not going to wake up in 3 days to a garden that looks transformed. This isn't dramatic. It's cumulative. In most documented cases, and in the experiments I've found, the noticeable differences begin around week 3 or 4. Germination often happens a few days earlier. Leaves tend to be slightly larger and darker green, which usually indicates better nitrogen uptake. Root systems, when people have dug up plants at the end of the season, tend to be denser. In optimal conditions, healthy soil, good moisture, the right wire placement, some growers report vegetables up to 30 or 40% heavier at harvest. Under poor conditions, the effect is much smaller. It's also worth saying, this works better for some plants than others. Leafy vegetables and root crops seem to respond most clearly. Tomatoes and cucumbers show noticeable results in most gardens. Fruit trees respond more slowly, over seasons rather than weeks. It's a gentle intervention, not a miracle, but something real. Here's what I keep thinking about. The atmosphere above a single square meter of ground carries enough latent electrical charge at any given moment to light a small LED. Not much energy, but it's constant. It never stops. Day and night, year after year, the sky is slowly reaching toward the earth. In the entire time we've been growing food, for thousands of years, that energy has been there, waiting, unused. Ancient cultures that grew their crops with wooden tools and no metal stakes may have unknowingly created conditions closer to this than modern gardening does. Our metal infrastructure, our compacted soils, our electrical grid running beneath our feet may actually be disrupting something that was once just part of how food grew. The copper antenna doesn't add anything artificial. It restores a connection that was always supposed to be there. A few practical things worth knowing. This is completely safe. The charge involved is atmospheric and passive. There's no circuit, no current source, nothing to short. Children and animals can move through a garden with these antennas without any risk. If you live in a region with frequent lightning, there's a small precaution. Don't place antennas on the highest point of an exposed hill. In a normal garden enclosed by fences, trees, or structures, the risk is negligible. The antennas are small and low, nothing that would meaningfully attract a strike. For best results, replace the wire every 2 to 3 growing seasons. Copper oxidizes over time, and the patina can reduce conductivity. You can clean it with a mild acid, lemon juice works, or simply use fresh wire. Store unused wire in a dry place, and when you're not using the antennas during winter, pulling them from the soil and storing them indoors extends their life considerably. I think about what it means that this knowledge existed, was documented carefully, published in journals, practiced in real fields, and then quietly set aside for 2 centuries. Not lost, just waiting. There's something humbling about that. The idea that the most useful things aren't always the newest things. That sometimes the solution to a problem is already sitting in the ground, in the air, in a technique that someone recorded in a notebook 200 years ago, and then no one thought to look up again. You don't need to believe in anything unusual to try this. You just need a wooden stick, a few meters of copper wire, and a garden willing to surprise you. And maybe a little patience for something slow and quiet to show you what it can do.